Starting recording. All right. And we're going to go full screen once again. Once full screen loads. Okay. Cool. Well, what's up, everyone? And welcome to another podcast. A little bit of a different podcast today, but nonetheless, another podcast about video games, mechanics, and just like video games in general. I am joined by Mr. ALG Gaming, as his name tag says.
Hello.
How is it going with you, my man?
Not bad.
Okay. Do you know what the topic is today, or did you not pay attention to what I sent you the memo?
No, I didn't get anything.
Okay. It's an easy topic. It's a very easy topic. I think it's very easy. Gonna be easy for you to discuss.
Starting mechanics.
No, it's not any mechanics actually. It's a little bit of a different one today. We're going to be talking about specifically the genres of gaming, but more on the specifically genres of gaming that we want to make a comeback in the mainstream of gaming. Maybe like now. Maybe there's a genre that you remember from like when you were younger, or like a genre that you really used to like. You played a few of its games and like it's not really around anymore, or it's not really as common anymore, and like not a lot of people are focusing on it, and like you'd love to see that genre back again. Maybe there's one like that.
Yeah.
So without like just throwing genres willy-nilly, I'm going to kind of just step through kind of the timeline of gaming and then throw a few genres out there that started existing during this time. I'm gonna kind of ask the question: do you want to see this back in gaming? Did you like this genre? Do you think it's like kind of been better in the past? Maybe nostalgia has kind of like made it better than what it was, or do you think like the idea is on its course? Like a lot of things to think over, but yeah. As I said, it's going to be a pretty fast vlog. I don't love vlog. Listen to me now. We've been recording a vlog the whole weekend, and now I'm still on vlog. No, it's going to be a pretty fast podcast. But yeah, I just thought like we'd throw a few ideas, and I thought it was make a nice discussion for people to think about. You know, like not a lot of people think about genres. We all think about games. You know, everyone talks about, oh, we want to get this game remastered. You know, they're all crying Splinter Cell remastered. They're crying all these Resident Evil remakes. They're saying like. Every type of remaster you can think out there, people want on the new console and stuff, but no one's thinking really about genres that they want to see back. And I think that could also be a valid point, especially if it's genres done right. But anyway, let's jump right into it. As I said, pretty fast one. We're just gonna move through it. Starting when most of like gaming picked up, 1970s. We know more or less what's in the 1970s. We know more or less what the 1970s consisted of. It was the era of arcade gaming. You know, you had your basic stuff, your shooters, your kind of flight or space games. You know, you were just flying with a joystick on the arcade machine, and other interesting things like text adventures that were available on some computers, and that evolved into text-based strategy games, like say the Oregon Trail. We've talked about Colossal Cave Adventure and Zork before on this one, like text adventure games and stuff like that. And it was just kind of people trying to. With the very, very limited technology they had, they were trying to represent and create a story about games and stuff like that. And like a lot of the games at the time, except now for the arcade ones that were just like at shooting at things, like you had basically two genres or two like ways of things. You were either shooting at things on a screen, like there were spaceships and stuff flying around, and you would go shooting that, or you were doing No, Wolfenstein didn't exist at this time. This is like way before Wolfenstein. Like we're talking, like, do you know the game Space Invaders?
Yeah.
That's like that sort of thing, like Space Invaders.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
Excuse me. Anyway, thank you. Space Invaders was one. Like we're talking Tank, which was another one. Asteroids was another one. Tetris was another one during this time. Obviously Tetris. Yeah, we all know Tetris. Pac-Man would also come around at some point. Like there's simple stuff like shooting at things, and then on the text adventure side, as a Colossal Cave Adventure, Zork, the Oregon Trail, and a few others based around strategy. So like most of them either had the basic shooty stuff that like was just about getting a high score, or the other one was based off of a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. The same concept of Dungeons and Dragons, where choices you make, depending on like what choices you take and stuff like that, would impact the story. It was a very, very basic form of that, but it would impact the story. Now, out of these, like I said, it wasn't too much, to go on at that point. But if you were, did you enjoy any of these games? Did you have any fond memories of any of these games? Like, I know it's like kind of your exposure to it would be limited, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem. I did play minimal Tetris, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's of its time. Like, I don't think I'd go back and lobby like, oh, we need to bring Tetris back. We need to bring all the arcade games back. Come on, guys. I think like at this point, like if you want to go and play it, you can go and play it somewhere like on a browser or on some sort of technology that would have it. But I don't think necessarily we should lobby for it to come back. I don't know.
No. I mean, even a remaster. It's just the fact that a remastering of the game won't really change anything, any aspect about the game.
I don't think it's necessary. Like, I think arcade games were perfect for its time, perfectly functional for like a fun little game that like you play and got a high score and everything. And maybe there were some good ones out there. I think the text adventure ones, like if you enjoyed the whole premise of it, but at this point in time, it's a very limited concept. I think you can do more with it now, maybe, but like we have a lot of other genres for that that's currently doing that. I don't think text adventure format, unless they go radical with it, maybe like tell the story in a very cool way. I'm thinking like I don't know if you've ever heard of the Stanley Parable. Have you ever heard of that game?
No, I've not.
The Stanley Parable kind of reminds me of the text adventures. Kind of. I say kind of because it's almost like an anti-game. I don't know how best to describe it. So Stanley Parable is like, yeah.
I just realized you were talking a lot about text-based games. So I was wondering if that is pretty much the topic.
No, this is just like one of the genres that I mentioned from the 70s.
Yeah, probably one of the bigger genres in that time. Yeah.
It was one of the like bigger computer gaming genres. Because remember, when you go to an arcade, you're not looking at like there weren't like these text tools. Then you were making choices. The arcades were all full of the shooters and stuff.
Fair
but
enough.
like the computer games at that point were like the text adventures and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think those ones are of its time. They're perfect and stuff like that. But I don't expect or wish really for some of those genres to be back. I like they can make them, but I don't think they need to come mainstream. I don't think mainstream wise, not gonna really make a difference. 1980s. So arcades now taking full flight, but also home computer and home console gaming came into full effect quite a lot.
Macintosh.
Yeah, stuff like that. We also had the video game crash of 1983. Big one there. A lot of stuff went wrong.
1983 crash.
So you can read up on it, but like basically, I think the whole thing is there was a huge oversaturation of the market, where like a lot of games were like really the same at that point because of the limited technology and stuff, and like it got so bad like that it just crashed. Like in terms of not a lot of people were buying stuff like that, and Atari was also one that suffered a lot. Atari died in 1983 around there somehow. We know about that because of the ET game and stuff like that. But I don't really know. I need to go read up again on it. But do know at that point, video game stocks were really at an all-time low in 1983, and like things were not looking good. But besides that point, arcade games were still kicking. Like I said, Pac-Man was there, shooters were there. Beat 'em ups were making their way to the scene. You remember beat 'em ups? Like you'd have this character, like almost a 2D screen, where your character would walk like this, and it like becoming enemies, and you'd have to like kick the enemies and beat up the enemies and stuff like that, and make it through the level. The beat 'em ups were coming into the scene. A little bit of fighters and stuff like that as well. Mostly revolving around like the kung fu and the endless enemies and stuff like that. And then also like from home computer gaming's perspective and stuff like that, we also got like the Commodore 64, the first ever Nintendo thing, the Nintendo Entertainment System called the NES, and the Sega Genesis. Those are three really big consoles or computers that like really made a big difference for us in gaming, like brought us a lot of stuff. And yeah, when it came to basically those ones, like a lot of stuff came through it. Also like the roguelike genre. Now I don't know if you're familiar with what is the roguelike genre.
Not really.
So the roguelike genre is basically also this type of dungeon crawler adventure type of thing. But the first thing is procedurally generated dungeons, meaning like you can't memorize the dungeon and know what's around every corner and stuff like that. And you can't, if you die, you die, and you have to start from the beginning. That was the genre. If you died in the game, you have to start from the beginning. It was like a complete game over. It was called the rogue genre because of like that. The purpose of the game was to make it difficult.
sort of whole idea of regenerating procedure-based things was that if you would die, you would not be able to recognize anything again once starting over.
Yes. Because, funny enough, roguelike games invented a save mechanic. Like,
wow.
The game that was trying to make you not do it. It did have save mechanics in it, which was kind of cool. But the whole point was that procedurally generated, so you can't just memorize the level and know what to do. Like, it was random every time, which made it also more replayable as well if you're playing the game and all that. But that's a genre we've already kind of seen, or still am seeing in the mainstream. Like, I don't think we need to do anything more. Souls games kind of revived it in a bit. Dark Souls games, that whole universe of whatever you're playing. Like, most of those are kind of versions of roguelike gaming when it comes to that. As well as others, there's other games that are kind of like that. One thing that comes to mind is Hollow Knight because of its difficulty and all that. Like, it's also kind of a roguelike game in my eyes. But yeah, it's a genre I don't think we need to feel like we need to say, oh, it needs to make a comeback. It's already back. Like, Souls gaming is very popular these days. Like, I mean, how many people do you know that's praising Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Sekiro?
Yeah,
a lot.
Games,
There's a lot. So I think from that point it's fine. From then,
it's especially in those games where they pose challenges about considering no dying.
Like, there's a lot of the people are pushing a lot of content of that as well. Like, how can you beat the hardest boss in the game? Like, with no armor, with the weakest weapon, with anything. There's a lot of challenges also around that people are using, and it's making a lot of emergent gameplay. Like, we talked about emergent gameplay last time as well. I don't know if you were in that podcast. I can't remember now. But anyway, yeah. So the emergent gameplay and stuff like that as well. From Nintendo's side, they had two big genres that they helped push all the way up. They are really been influential on this thing. Legend of Zelda, one of the first RPGs out there, as we know. Action, kind of RPGs, kind of action thing with the whole you have a kind of a claw, you have kind of skills that you have to level up, and you want to go on quests, and you're exploring a world, and you're the hero, and you need to save everything and stuff like that. Like, Legend of Zelda pushed that to the moon. And then platformers as well, because of Super Mario Bros. You know?
Armin?
Yeah? Hello?
Sorry, really don't want to disrupt anything, but I quickly have to go. But I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
I'll be back now, I promise you.
Alright, I hope so. Anyways, otherwise I'm gonna have to talk to myself. But anyways, so yeah, talking about those two, the RPGs and the platformers. So RPGs, platformers, we all know that pretty popular genres out there. Like, I don't think I need to kind of explain that. I think you all can still see that RPG and platformers are very popular genres. So much so that we are starting to see RPG elements in a lot of games, which kind of don't need them. Like, people are starting to try and say, we don't want to make an RPG game, but we want to put the RPG elements in a game. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work. Like, I'll give you an example, one that I didn't agree with all that much. So, how do I put it? Let me take an easy example of what I found. Dying Light 1, Dying Light 2. Now, Dying Light 1 was a pretty basic zombie game. Pretty basic. It's pretty much a zombie slasher. It has a story and stuff like that, and of course you can upgrade. You have skill trees and stuff like that, which isn't necessarily an RPG mechanic, but it's associated with those games. But you have a skill tree, and you have weapons that you can upgrade and stuff like that, to make you better or make you stronger or whatever. That's Dying Light 1. Very simple formula, very well executed. Dying Light 2. When Dying Light 2 came around, they obviously wanted to up the ante a bit and give it a bit more oomph and stuff like that, and try and craft some stuff. And the ideas, you can see the ideas were good here. They wanted to get more RPG elements in the game, which is an action game, such as story-based decisions. Like, you decide who to help, which factions to kind of support, how to play your role, because kind of role play in a game, like RPG games. You also had stuff where you were part of factions, as I just mentioned now, and your factions would give you different perks and stuff like that, which you didn't have in the first Dying Light. And also just leveling up. I can't remember the Dying Light one had a leveling up system, or that the zombies were leveled and stuff like that, or there were levels on regions, regions were leveled and stuff like that. But Dying Light 2 has that, regions are leveled. zombies are leveled in those regions, and of course you are leveled when you are upgrading stuff. Like I said, ideas were okay. Like some of them I didn't agree with, like the leveling thing, but I thought the story-based decisions would look cool. But then the execution was what let them down because they had the whole thing of like limited, they like kind of the illusion of choice. Oh look, I'm all lonely now. Kind of the illusion of choice when it comes to the kind of RPG games because like they only had like 3 decisions and they didn't really matter at all in the game. So like the RPG elements in that game really was confusing. But like I digress a little bit, but like what I wanted to say is like RPGs are really still mainstream. Like there's no denying that RPGs are kind of like one of the top selling stuff on all platforms, PC, console, whatever you want. Same goes for platformers. They're a little bit scaled down now than what they were, let's say, in the 80s and 90s, but they're still around. There's definitely still got your Mario's, your Sonics, your Crash Bandicoots and stuff. Like, I mean, they still releasing new games. Crash Bandicoot released a game not too long ago. I'm pretty sure Sonic at Frontiers or stuff like that. I think that's a new game that also released. The platforms are still going strong, even if it's like the same genres. Now, yeah, I wanted to say maybe if we look at more sub genres when it comes to RPGs and stuff, maybe tactical RPGs. That's a pretty interesting one, maybe to see back in the more mainstream thing. We had, the Dragon Age one, which was quite cool. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not a really big tactical player of RPGs. I like a more casual experience, but I could definitely see a place for it where something maybe like Dragon Age would play a role, maybe even something like Mass Effect, if you can kind of make a tactical version out of that. Party based or even like kind of isometric ones, like thinking about like Baldur's Gate, Blackgate, maybe like something like I can't remember the other one really, but anything really with a party based system. Like Final Fantasy does it pretty well. It's now a JRPG, but Final Fantasy does a pretty good party based RPG system. You can definitely bring that a little bit back, but like I said, it's still mainstream-ish. Like it's not as popular as just your action RPG or like a normal RPG, like a fantasy RPG, but it is still mainstream-ish, and we do still see it a lot. Maybe another one for RPGs that I did think about was realistic RPGs. Now, realistic RPGs, I don't really want to say like, oh, it's just because the combat's not realistic or that's not how we play and stuff. Like RPGs are pretty realistic with a lot of stuff, but like maybe an RPG that doesn't have to rely on fiction. I thought that was something like that's cool. And I'll give an example. A game that I played not too long ago that I still like want to give a whole video about with praise and stuff is Kingdom Come Deliverance. A fantastic game, made by not like big studio and stuff like that, but like a game that has me really hooked until the end. Like it has this simple story that you're a simple like blacksmith son, and like your village gets raided, and like there's an entire um, invasion of your lands, and you kind of have to hole up now in like the nearby how do I say it? Nearby like royals castle and stuff like that. But like the game nails it really down. You're a blacksmith son. You're not gonna know how to fight. You're not gonna be good at fighting. You can't like you can obviously eventually skill up, but it takes a long time with a lot of practice and stuff to skill up and get to a point where you can take on like 3 bandits per se. We're not talking about taking on hundreds of enemies and winning all of them. We're talking about just being able to take on multiple enemies at once. Like 3 bandits and stuff like that. Because I'm not joking. Every time I saw 2 bandits and I had to take on 2 bandits, I would run away. I literally would run away on the other direction because it was that like realistically difficult. And it's realistic as well. There was no fiction in the entire game. There's no like things like dragons, no magic, no kind of like division of lands or stuff like that. It was a really game that wanted to nail down the realism, and it took place on a historical event. It was talked about like the invasion of the Hungarians, if I remember mistaken, the invasion of the Hungarians in the Czech lands at the time, and like everything is just so well crafted. It's so realistic. It's so well detailed, and it's like everything is just so well done, I guess. That like yeah, I just it kind of made me wish that I had have more RPGs like that where I'm just kind of a piece in history where I'm just sitting there and I'm just kind of you know being kind of a not just a bystander, like I'm having some playing a role and stuff like that, but like I'm witnessing history in front of me. Like Assassin's Creed used to do this really well. Like they've diverged now more into a mainstream RPG path. Actually, talking about those, they've diverged more into a more mainstream RPG path, like things like Origins, Odyssey, and then new one, the codename Red one, which I think is taking place in Japan. but like they used to be so much about like a historical setting and stuff like that. When you think about the Crusades with Altair, when you think about Ezio and the Renaissance, when you think about like even the more recent ones like Connor in the American Revolution, Edward in the Age of Piracy, anything like that. My favorite one still being Arno, because the historical piece, Arno's time with the French Revolution was really, really great to see, like that whole atmosphere of having the French Revolution in that. Hello, I see you're back. Hopefully you're back. I can't hear you yet, but I do hope you're back. Yeah, and then as I said, from platforms perspective, platforms are still doing it. Mr. Marty, I cannot hear you at the moment. Maybe just check if your mic is not muted or something. But from platformer side, as I mentioned, the big names are still doing it. Crash is still doing it. Crash Bandicoot, Sonic is still doing it. They're releasing new games. Mario is still doing it on the Wii or the Nintendo. But it would be nice to see more than just those three big names. Like they carry kind of the franchise or the genre at this point.
Hello.
Hello. Are you back?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I was talking a little bit about the RPGs, the types of RPGs that I would like to see back. Like RPG at this point, if you just say the genre RPG, that's a very mainstream genre. It's still a bestseller to this day.
Yeah, that's
like. But if
definitely.
is there a specific type of RPG that you maybe think like that maybe is not being looked at enough, like maybe than it was in the past? Is there anyone like of those that you want to see back?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when talking about RPG is, of course, RPG, and one that's a little bit less considered these days is MMORPG. Mm-hmm. And actually, the last one I played was Goat Simulator MMO, and that was like 6 years ago.
That's strange because there are some MMORPGs. I think the big thing about MMORPGs as well is like when it comes to an MMORPG, because it's a live service game, it means it has to have a pretty long lifetime. When you think about, let's say, World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft has probably been around for like 15 plus years now as an MMORPG, which means it's got pretty popular. It's still very popular game. It's still very popular fan base stuff. If you think about Elder Scrolls Online, I think Elder Scrolls Online is like approaching 10 years now. 10 years that it's been in around. Diablo, oh no, Diablo's not an MMORPG. Destiny, which is semi MMO like FPS, like it's an FPS version of the MMO formula. That's been around. If you think about Destiny 2, that's been 6 years. Destiny 1 is also 10 years now going on. But like all of those have long lifespans when it comes to live service and that. But I do think one thing that I would want to see back from MMORPGs, but this is more a thing that I think that I'm saying that should change rather than like bring in. If they can somehow make it that MMORPGs are not as grindy as they are currently. I don't know, like I think Goat Simulators one was a pretty funny model, but I would genuinely like to see more of Goat Simulators one where it's like just a lot of casual quests and dumb stuff you do. You don't have to grind everything because like I stopped playing Destiny and I stopped playing Elder Scrolls Online. I stopped playing a lot of those because every single thing is just a grind. You fight the same boss and you fight the same stuff and you go through the same dungeons and all that for better loot, for slightly better loot. But at the end of the season, you know they're just gonna make it like highest level loot and stuff like that. It really pained me after a while. I couldn't take it anymore. It just gets so like I can't imagine someone's doing that like 1,000+ hours putting that into it. Like it really boggles my mind. How can you do that every day? That's like a job. That's like you're doing a job, but now in gaming. Why are you doing a job?
Fair enough.
No. And then the other one I just was about to get into before you joined, platformers. Platformers are still kind of mainstream, but they're being carried by the three entities, which is the Marios, the Sonics, and the Crash Bandicoot. Those are your three big platformers always hanging around.
And all of those are also popular in the 90s and
That's like they've been around. They have longevity. I'll give them that, and they've been around for a long time. But the thing is, I would like to see more names, like more names coming to the mainstream for platforms, maybe with new ideas. Like if you got an entirely new franchise for platformers, it would be really nice. Because like when you play a Crash game, or when you play a Mario game, or when you play a Sonic game, you know the gameplay of one. You know the mechanics of how one is going to work. They've been doing it since you said like the 80s and 90s. So you know how they're going to play. That's the thing. So if you have a new franchise that can start up, I would really love to see them come through a little bit. But I think that's like the good thing that will come through with mainstream. So that's what the Nintendo did, the RPGs and the platforms in the 80s. Sega Genesis, as I mentioned, also had kind of a little bit of a start of a new genre when it came to this stuff, and that was kind of an interesting one. They chose sports games when they were looking at like new types of games to like boost the things. An interesting choice, a very cool choice because like you can imagine sports are always popular, and now you're putting them into games. That's quite a smart idea if you can execute it right. But they had anything like they had. When it comes to like stuff like that, it was mostly arcade stuff because at this point, like the technology is still limited. So a lot of the arcade stuff that came through is like zany golf to the NBA playoffs, and even like Madden games in the 80s were coming around, but like mostly arcade stuff. Now, on that point, I think just specifically arcade sports games I would like to see back because when you look nowadays, sports games are still one of the best sellings one out there. I mean, if you look at EA's profits, EA does FIFA, NBA, the hockey one, Madden. They probably do a bunch of other ones. You can imagine how much profit EA is making out of the sports. And EA Sports thing is always it has a lot of criticism because EA Sports they want to make a simulation game, they want to make it realistic as possible. But now the problem is because they're trying to make it realistic as possible, everyone's like criticizing it because like that is not realistic at all. Like how that guy is moving and stuff like that, like it's looking really bad because because they're trying to make a simulation, you're going to get criticized for every little thing about it. But like if you make an arcade game or try to make an arcade sports game, you can have a completely different market and you can have a completely different like kind of approach to it. Because if you make an arcade game, you can like say, oh, but like let's make, for example, I'm not kidding. There was a game called NFL Blitz, and literally when you get tackled in the NFL Blitz, they would literally do WWE moves on you. I'm not joking. Like you get tackled and this guy freaking suplexes you over like this, or the one guy gives you a tombstone pile driver like poof, and when he catches it, it's not real. That's funny. And like I mean, I know it's not realistic, but it's funny to watch because I know it's a game. Like I like that kind of thing. I like the kind of idea of that. And like recent games that I thought like had a really good shout with doing it if they were just a little bit more supportive, maybe. Like think about Roller Champions. Do you remember Roller Champions? You played Roller Champions with me.
Yeah.
Was that not a fun game? While it lasted at least.
It was.
It was. And it was a new idea. Like I know that sport doesn't exist in real life. I know we don't have rocket powered skates and we can float 10 meters in the air, but it's based on a real sport like roller derbies that we saw live as well. Remember we saw roller derbies live when we went to that convention? So we know how the real sport is, and we know this is an arcade version, but that's what makes it so fun because we can just like use our creativity to make a completely new sport. That Roller Champions was really fun. If they just supported it, it would have been a really great game because it was a live service game as well. They could have gone like years with that thing, but Ubisoft is Ubisoft, so they didn't. But think about other great sports games, Riders Republic, which I loved. I say loved because they also stopped supporting it, Ubisoft. But like, some of the stuff in Riders Republic, do you think we have rocket-powered skis in the real world? That someone's like going 90 kilometers an hour just because of these two jet like boosters being strapped to the back of my skis going. Do you think that's real in real life? No, it's not. But that's what makes it so fun because we can have it in gaming. Let me imagine it. Like that's what makes it so cool. Like I'd rather see that in gaming, and that's why I'm so excited for that other Lego game that I sent you. That Lego 2K Drive game.
Yeah.
That really looks good because I know it's an arcade racer. You can have so much fun with that. Like that's another one that's coming up, by the way. I'm gonna complain about arcade racing as well. But yeah, before we get there, yeah, that's what like kind of boosted the 80s at this point. It was either the arcade sports, the platformers, the RPGs, a lot of new genres running through that like are still popular today. And yeah, that is kind of also when it comes to the 90s, going into the 90s, we still saw the explosion of some of these genres, but also the new coming of new genres and stuff like that. As you said, I just discussed racing ones at that point. Like at this point, we have the same problem with racing as we have with sports. Every single race game out there is trying to be realistic. It's trying to like be the most realistic thing, or it's trying to go all about street racing and stuff like that. Like look at all the Need for Speeds. All of them are trying to do street racing, which is fine. but they're not differentiating themselves enough. And now at this point I'm feeling like I'm playing the same Need for Speed, or I'm just playing a Need for Speed like 2023. Like you could just call it Need for Speed 2023, and then next year we'll bring out Need for Speed 2024, and that's gonna be the Need for Speed.
I kind of like the idea of Beam MG Drive, where they still have idea of being realistic, but I also have a sense of being satire and just overall funny.
The thing is that BeamNG does well is because it's a physics-based sandbox vehicle game. It's not a racer. That's the other point I want to make.
It's fair.
Like I was gonna say arcade racing should come back because I love games like the Lego game and more arcade racing. Like the Hot Wheels game was really funny. Do you remember the Hot Wheels game as well? Hot Wheels game was really great. Yeah. Trackmania is Trackmania is kind of like an arcade racing game. Trackmania is fun. Trackmania is one of the most fun like racing games I've ever played because it's an arcade one. It knows like we know there's no loop-de-loops in real life. Why can't we just have it in a game? Like I can't understand why it's so difficult for people to understand. But like the other point I want to make is why does everything that involves a car in a game have to be a racing game? Like why? The point you make with BeamNG, right? BeamNG Drive. It's not a racing game. It's a physics-based simulation or sandbox game because you just literally have these stupid ideas like what happens if a taxi goes through a 50-meter pothole. That's literally what makes the game fun because I can simulate that and watch it in physics. So like I can do a million things with it. It's not racing. Think about like Wreckfest. Is another one I wanted to make a point of. Wreckfest was a fantastic little game that released. It was a demolition derby game. It's literally just the simplest concept of let's see how hard these cars can smash into each other, and the last one standing wins. Like, how has no one thought of that before 2018? I think the game came out in 2018. How has no one like tried to do that for the mainstream media? How? How is it taking this long for people to like just think of a different like thing besides racing? It doesn't have to be racing, or it doesn't have to be every single type of racing. Like think about what was that game's name? I can't even remember the game's name. Metal Justice or something like that, where like it also were in the city and you had to take down vehicles. Like Burnout. Burnout's another good example. Burnout had racing in it, sure, but Burnout's racing was literally like you'd win and get boosted stuff by smashing other cars into traffic, killing basically the person inside. Do you think that's realistic? Do you think I'm doing that in real life when I'm racing someone? I'm gonna hit them in oncoming traffic and like, oh yeah, I won. I got nitrous boost because of it. Hell yeah, my XP's gone up because I killed a family of 4. No, it's an arcade thing. Why can't I just have that in a game? It's so like I can't understand it. This is what I'm saying. I can't understand it. Even bike games.
Yeah.
MX versus ATV. I always thought it was a fun game. That one is a bit more racing, but I always thought that was a fun game because like you could literally like have ATVs and 2-wheelers and stuff like that to race with each other, which was kind of cool. And trials, even the trials games. I like the trials games where you'd have these stupidest like, you just had to get through the level. It wasn't necessarily even racing someone in trials. It was like getting through these stupid levels of exploding barrels or doing stunt jumps and stuff like that. It was fun. It was something different, and I'd like to see that in racing again. Well, not racing, just vehicle games in general. But yeah, the 90s had more stuff after that little rant of mine. The 90s had more stuff than that. Here's one that's pretty, like, as I said, pretty mainstream. I don't think we're going to see any much more of that. And, like, what they're doing right now with the genre is pretty good. I don't think, like, there's much else. Except for, like, maybe they should get more ideas instead of remaking every single thing under the sun. But the survival horror genre. Silent Hill, Resident Evil. Remember you were talking about how scared you were seeing Evil Within the other day? Like, the survival horror genre is always going to be there because of how scary it is and how scared it makes us feel and stuff like that. So I think that one's like perfect for its time, perfect still now. It's going to have a lot of new ideas. We're going to be filled with survival horror games out there. 90s obviously had shooters. I don't think I have to say much about shooters. We all know what shooters are. It started with Doom. It started with Wolfenstein. It started with all those ones in the past. And they are and they always will be popular. It's just a fact. Probably going to be the most popular genre of all time. We've all had our fair share of shooters, and the shooters we enjoy and stuff. And like even from the stealth side, we've had the Hitman, and we had Splinter Cell, which people have been begging for a remake. We've had Tenchu. We've had, I don't think Thief had like that weapons and stuff of 10 shredders weapons, but still. We've had our fair share of also stealth ones like Ghost Recon as well. It was a stealth one and all that stuff. The one thing I will complain as well about shooters is also shooters have all become competitive for no reason whatsoever. Like, I know COD did it. I know COD did it at some point. Like COD used to be about World War II and some like minimal servers and stuff like that. But at some point, like every single shooter out there decided to be competitive, and I don't like it. I don't like why they kind of have to have this whole kind of attitude of like we all have to always try and compete to be the best in the shooter. It's boring. It gets boring after a while because at that point it's like I want to play a shooter for a different experience, and I'll eventually like sure, yeah.
Well, it pretty much changed the entire plot of the game.
No, I know, and it's like it's going to be healthy for gaming to have a competitive thing out there, and it's going to like push a lot of people to play games and stuff like that and try and be the best, and like it has its own market. We know how big the esports market is because of it, like it's a huge market. But I hate how every shooter feels like it has to do that. Like I used to always like the feel of Battlefield. Like, sure, you're still trying to win and stuff in Battlefield, but the thing is, like, you can play so many roles in Battlefield. You can be in a tank and run people over. You can be a sniper 500 meters away, just picking off targets. You can be a guy, the guy in the jet that's like dropping bombs. You can be the guy on the quad bike with the C4 strapped to the back, trying to like kamikaze into someone. Even a game like Splitgate, I was talking the other day. I still think Splitgate's one of the cooler shooters I've played in a while because I don't feel like I have to win in Splitgate. Splitgate has all these like it has team deathmatch and it has the normal modes, but it has all these fun modes like that are just a bunch of fun. Like the one that's like infected in Call of Duty, the one that you play with like a bordering around where everyone has a bat, the one where you like play with the one laser cannon thing, the one where you play one in the chamber. Like it's fun modes. Like we don't even see some of those modes in Call of Duty. The ones who invented these modes, we don't see them in some of their own games anymore. Like why? Why did they all just decide to become competitive? Why did they think like 100% of the people who play our games are gonna want to be sweaty, sweaty, sweaty guys who's gonna play 8 hours a day? Who thought that? I really don't know. And then the 90s also saw MMOs. You mentioned MMOs now, MMORPGs and all that stuff. And as I said, MMOs have a long live service thing, but I do want to see them just move a little bit away from the grindy stuff. We've set our piece of that. Special shout out to rhythm games as well. I did want to put this genre in because I want to make a point about rhythm games making a comeback.
Oh yeah.
Some of them really have like even picked up a lot of mainstream attention. Like in the beginning, we had Parappa the Rapper, Dance Dance Revolution. The one with a lot of longevity was Guitar Hero, obviously. You enjoyed Guitar Hero the past weekend, didn't you? And Guitar Hero is a great little party rhythm game that you play. And the thing is, Guitar Hero stopped making stuff in 2015. I think was their last one. And then look at how, like, you remember when Friday Night Funkin' came out? You remember how much attention that got?
Yeah.
That was like a Kickstarter indie game. Like that was an indie game Kickstarter stuff, which means it like wasn't made for the mainstream, but it became mainstream very fast with a simplified concept. It wasn't doing anything much new when it comes to like the rhythm genre and stuff like that, but it was a very simplified concept. And then the new game Hi-Fi Rush, which is also a rhythm game, but it's kind of like an open world RPG type of thing. Well, not an RPG, but an open world action game with rhythm like mechanics. That's also a really cool thing they've been trying to do, and that's also going to catch the mainstream attention. Like, there's a potential untapped market right here for a lot of new people that I think like rhythm games can take over. I've been hoping that they come back for a while because I think rhythm games are fun. Make Guitar Hero make a comeback, make Rock Band make a comeback, make Parappa the Rapper make a comeback. Everything just to have rhythm games as well. Okay, now we move over to the 2000s. As I said, like a lot of still genres coming in. I'm trying to like just kind of summarize it for you. But the big console competition started to come in now. We're talking about Xbox versus PlayStation. Sega died in the 2000s, so rest in peace, Sega. PCs were evolving rapidly. A lot of new technology coming to PCs, as we know. And yeah, the competitive scene itself, the esports scene itself, started to pick up. It started with Quake in '96. And it's been non-stop ever since. Like once Quake hit those shells and everyone could compete online like that, also in Unreal, in the Unreal like tournaments and stuff like that, like it really started to pick up steam. First of the genres that came out was the multiplayer online battle arena genres, the MOBAs, like Dota and League of Legends. I do not have anything to say about those. They can stay dead. Do you want to see them back at all or not?
Not really.
I don't know. Like I look at those stuff and I can understand why people enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it. As I said, it's too competitive. It's the whole nature of the game is being competitive. And I understand why it's mainstream.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be mainstream always. Like it just pushes another
Yeah.
agenda of all gaming should be competitive. It gets repetitive after a while. But so I think it just needs to take a back seat with it, and it would be much nicer for us. Sandbox games. Sandbox games started to make an appearance in the 2000s. We saw it with Gmod, we saw it with Minecraft, we saw it with GTA V. Now, Gmod, Minecraft, and GTA V, as you know, are still games that are being played, like, to this day. It's probably the more popular stuff on YouTube these days are those free games.
Yeah.
And, like, that's because sandbox games have this content creation, like, like it's a well of content creation where like you can make anything you want as long as like your imagination is literally your limit. And that's like why those free games have been thriving and why other sandbox games have been thriving as well. Even something like Skyrim, which is also technically a sandbox RPG, people still make Skyrim content to this day because it's such a thriving game. Yeah, well, I mean, think about it.
That actually surprised me.
Think about it. How old is Skyrim?
What year did it release?
2011.
Okay, it's 12 years.
12 years. You still see Skyrim YouTube videos being released like now and then. It's not as much, but it's there.
Yeah.
And it's about new stuff. And I'm not talking like about like it's the same old videos or just like gameplay videos. People are still releasing funny new stuff about it. It's like more related to the sandbox aspect of it. But still, it's because it's got that sandbox aspect. And yeah, I think it will always have its place. Like it's still gonna be in mainstream. And obviously, like look at the games I mentioned. Gmod was revolutionary for its time. Then came Minecraft, which was revolutionary for its time. Then came GTA V, which already like big name. A new GTA was released. But like look at all the content they made afterwards. Just the fact that it was a sandbox was very revolutionary for such an open world, online and like on the offline. So that'll always have its place. Party games. Games like, well, Guitar Hero also falls on this, but like think about games like SingStar and Mario Party and the type of, even That's You as a game. Like even like those type of games, that's like a games night games. Do you remember? We had that game on the PS2. I don't remember it. It was called literally.
Oh yeah, Astro.
It was, yeah. Do you remember it?
And that was so fun.
It was so fun because it had all these stupid like little party games on it that we used to play and like for points and stuff like that. Like how is that not still mainstream to this point? Like do people just not visit each other anymore? Do people not just have like a party night anymore? Like does it not exist anymore? Because like you all came over this past weekend to my house and we played some Guitar Hero. Like it was fun. Yeah. How come we don't have games like that really anymore? How come everything is just not like that? Like, why is that fallen out of mainstream? Like, I can't understand it. Like, maybe I'm not a business mind, but like, I just can't understand why some of these genres are still not popular. Because I mean, party games, like people have like kaiers. We visit each other. We want to play games with each other, and we don't necessarily like. The thing is about party games, which makes them really fun. Is like when you have people coming over to your house and you think, okay, let's go, we're gonna play a little bit of video games together. You're not gonna let them play. Let me think of a game. We're not gonna let them play like if they're not, let's say they're non-gamers. They don't really play games all that much. Are you going to boot up Minecraft Dungeons, for example, and we're gonna play Minecraft Dungeons together? For a non-gamer. No, not really. Am I going to play?
No, not anyway.
No, not for a non-gamer. Like, if you have gamer friends, yeah, sure, you can have Minecraft Dungeons and play that together. I'm pretty sure they'll enjoy it. When you have people over, and let's say you're playing split screen COD, Are you gonna let non-gamers come and play split screen COD?
Not at all.
Not really, because the thing is, they'll probably get shot to bits online and get called a loser or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's so competitive. No, that's what party games' point was. You have SingStar, which is essentially karaoke on a game. That's what it was, karaoke on a game. So it's the simplest rules. You just stick a mic in someone and say, okay, you guys come sing with me, and you karaoke. Mario Party was the simplest thing. It was literally technically a board game with a few events. Even like the Hasbro thing you mentioned, that was literally just a few board games that everyone knew that was on a game. Just the simplest things. Like, you don't have to explain anything to the non-gamers, and you can play it at any time. Even That's You.
Yeah.
That's You has like 2 rules in the whole game.
It's pretty much self-explanatory.
Yeah, it has like 2 rules in the whole game. And it's very easy. Like, how is it this difficult? How have we lost all this stuff to the mainstream? It really baffles me. Okay. The next one is survival. Survival games have started to be taking shape. We still have survival games now and then, but most recently, a lot of them, when they do come out, are of 2 types of survivals. And obviously, the competitive scene has lended itself a bit to this one. But most of the survivals that come out now are base builder survivals or PvP survivals. PvP survival is also like battle royales and stuff like that, by the way. So you can already see what I'm saying. Like, that's a very mainstream one, is PvP survival, and that's because of the whole competitive gaming thing. It's a smart idea, but like, do we need it every time to be competitive? Not really, but they still do. And base builders, same thing. Like, some base builders you do enjoy offline, like say the Forest is technically a base builder when it comes to that type of thing. It's still a survival game, but most of it's like revolved around building a base and stuff like that. When it comes to that game, or like even a competitive game like Rust is about building a base and then protecting a base. Even Ark is about building a base and then protecting a base. I don't enjoy really those games all that much because most of the game is just maintenance. Oh, my base broke here. I'm gonna go fix this in my base. Oh, I need to make this improvements over my base. I'm gonna go improve this part of the base. Like, it starts to get boring after a while. I would say one subgenre of survival that I do want to see a bit more in the mainstream. It's around the fringes and does really make some good games when it comes out. Is the true survival. I've always called it true survival because it actually feels like every second of the game I'm trying to fight for my survival when it comes to stuff like that. Like, I'll give an example. Technically, even Subnautica can fall under true survival because Subnautica is not necessarily about base building. Like, it is, like, it's cool to build a base and stuff in Subnautica, but that's not what all your resources are going towards. In Subnautica, all your resources are going towards improving the technology, being able to go deeper into the depths, uncovering the mystery, but all of it all just also staying, like, surviving the crash of the spaceship or whatever you were piloting. Like, that was the thing. And that's what made Subnautica also scary when the stuff came out, like, because you realized your survival is at risk when it comes to the Leviathans, when it comes to the like whatever threats you had. But the other ones is also true survival is Stranded Deep. Stranded Deep was a very fun game, but like in Stranded Deep, you're not spending your time base building. You're spending your time trying to like get stuff to survive, like building a shelter, a simple shelter, exploring other islands, building ways to get like a permanent source of water, like a water still, or you're building like a way to better cook your food, like the hobo stove that never worked. It absolutely never worked. I don't know why that game is still bugged with the hobo stove, but it's so funny. But like imagine, like, let me put it to you this way: when you're in the forest, right? And that's I always like to make this example, like when I'm talking to my friends about distinguishing between the forest. Take the forest and take Stranded Deep. In the forest, when you get hit and you're bleeding in the forest, it's not serious because the thing is, I know I'm gonna find some duct tape in the suitcase that's like lying right over there, and like I'm gonna patch myself up, and magically everything's gonna be okay. And then like I don't even have to worry about any effects that lasted. If you even get like bitten by a shark in Stranded Deep, not killed, bitten by a shark in Stranded Deep, it literally takes like an hour to like fix this up because you have to swim to an island to get the materials for bandages, and then you have to go craft your bandages, and then you have to make sure you're not too tired or like other effects is coming along, and then you have to craft the bandages, and you have to put on the bandages, and then you have to heal yourself, and like For a simple thing like bleeding or poisoning or broken bones in Stranded Deep, it makes it as serious as it's supposed to be in a true survival, which I like. There's also other notable mentions like This War of Mine that I enjoyed. It was a cool little game for its time. Also Green Hell. I've been meaning to try it out. Green Hell looks a lot like Stranded Deep except in the rainforest. It's also a game that I've been meaning to check out when it's on sale. Maybe I'm gonna check it out because that also looks really cool. But there's more room for it. There's definitely more room for true survival to really expand into this. Maybe like in other settings. Think about space. Think about a Fallout-like setting for true survival. Like there's so much more we can do with the genre. I really hope. I really, really, really do hope we do get some more of that. But yeah, that's mostly. I know I haven't covered any other genres, but that's mostly like the timeline of when it comes to genres, and like the ones that I feel like I fall under the radar. Are they now I'm gonna throw the question to you. Were there any other genres that I didn't mention that you think needs to make a comeback?
Okay, well, it doesn't necessarily need to make a comeback, but I think it would be pretty cool. This is actually quite funny. I think you already know.
What? I know nothing. You need to tell me.
It's this gonna be really stupid, but some type of tower defense.
I literally wrote it down in my notes here for you. I was going to ask you, do you want balloon tower defense free to make a comeback?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, tower defense was always my thing, but since I again started playing Balloon City, it's just.
I think tower defense has a lot of new ideas it can have. I think tower defense has a lot of new ideas that it can have. Like
definitely.
when it comes to like tower defense was hot in like the late 80s or early 90s. That's like when it was hot. Do you think in 20 years they haven't thought of new ideas that we can do? There's definitely an opportunity for new ideas when it comes to tower defense, and I think a lot of games could have some sort of tower defense mechanism. Think about Minecraft Legends. That's what I want to mention. Minecraft Legends has tower defense mechanisms, technically, in a little way. Because you keep defending the villages and they keep getting raided and stuff like that. And you have to make sure the tower defense is there when the raids are going. At this point, it's easy, but when those like hordes of the piglins and stuff like that, I think build up, you're gonna have a more tower defense situation on your hands where you're gonna try and defend. Um, and then I don't even have. I think I missed this note in my when I was making my notes, but I was gonna make also a point about RTS games. Now that we're talking about tower defense, RTS games I really also want to make. I wanted to make it. So RTS is called real-time strategy games. That'll be your Age of Empires, your StarCraft.
Clash Royale.
No, not Clash Royale. Technically, it's Clash Royale, but I don't want to say it. It is Clash Royale technically.
Yeah.
Also, like Age of Empires, StarCraft, Command and Conquer, all of those ones really could make a comeback. Because, like, again, a few genres that's carrying it, a few genres that's still kicking it around, but like a genre that can definitely use a lot more ideas. It became hot in the late 90s, and I think also in 20 years we've had new ideas. There's new things to implement. There's a new way of playing RTSs and a more integrated way, I think, that we can make RTSs that would be really cool. But I have said my piece about that a lot so far. Also in a lot of other stuff. But yeah, RTS games I do want to see a comeback. What do I have here? Live sim or pet sim games. So games like The Sims. We know The Sims. It's still around. It's still doing its thing, which is kind of okay. Like I think they're just a bit stale at this moment. I don't know. Like I think you can still get enjoyment out of The Sims if you play the older ones specifically and stuff like that. But I'd like to see competition for The Sims. There is currently competition coming out for The Sims. Apparently, I just don't know when. But a game is releasing that's supposed to be rivaling The Sims. Yeah, a game that's going to become in competition with The Sims. And another one is pet sim games. That used to be popular in the 2000s, but now not so much. I don't know why. But like, I don't know if you've ever played. It's gonna sound really stupid, but the old Facebook games, there was this game called Petville. There was this game called Gardenscapes. I don't know. Is Club Penguin not technically a pet sim game, or am I imagining things? Hello, Marty. Seems like I lost him there. So I'm gonna continue. But Pet Sim's like, oh, I hear he's back.
Hello, sorry.
Now I was gonna say Pet Sim games. Like, do you remember Pet Sim games more or less? There were a few of them around. Like games where you like simulated either A, you're taking care of pets, or B, you were like the animals. That was kind of funny. Like I remember like those PS2 games, there was literally a cat's game, a dog's game, and a horse's game. And I think especially the dog's game, like you were literally an open world, like roaming around as a dog. Weird concept, but like I mean it's kinda cool if you think about it. Like you're not it's a completely different perspective. And I think it's kind of cool if you implement stuff like that. Like we don't see even that around anymore these days.
No, I haven't heard of that.
No, you don't. I don't necessarily think they should come mainstream. I'd say that's a bit of a stretch saying they come mainstream. But it would like nice piece to like to see a new idea, a fresh new idea around it. That like maybe a pet game or something like that comes out. Like Stray. Think about Stray. Look how well that's done. And the only thing it was is it's a platformer with a cat. That's the only thing it was. It's like maybe instead of a human, let's make a platformer with a cat, and he's doing cat things, and it's one of the best games that came out like in 2022 because of its whole vision and stuff like that. It was a really cool idea. So I think that's still a mechanism people can do. City builders I've got written down here. City builders kind of cool. I don't know, like I'm in the middle when it comes to city builders. I feel like they become boring unless you like really are invested into it. Like they become boring after a while. So I wouldn't say mainstream, but I would like to see more city builders come back. We've had well, SimCity kind of failed after a while, but like SimCity should come back. There was this also other one called City Skylines. I don't know if they've ever made another game besides City Skylines. But like I would like to see those two come back. A little bit more city builders and stuff like that with like new ideas and stuff like that. It's also been like quite a bit since we've seen those. But yeah, that's all I've got written down. Are there any other ones I didn't think about? You've now mentioned tower defense. Are there any other ones?
I can't really think of more.
But I think I think this is a question we should throw to the people watching. Yeah, I think we've summed it.
If I were to say one, probably one of those are already named.
Yeah, I think we said pretty much, and we can't have all of them mainstream. I think like when it comes down to it, a few of them might become mainstream again. Maybe like they're gonna be lost forever, unfortunately. But let's throw the question out there to you guys that are listening or watching this or whatever. If there is a genre, I'm pretty sure every single one of you is thinking out there like, oh man, I wish this genre would come back. Oh man, I wish like my favorite game and stuff they would make more of them and stuff like that. Like you have to have one out there. Like if there is a genre that you truly feel like needs to have a comeback to the mainstream as a valid like kind of reason for being mainstream again, let us know. It's always fun to have a discussion. It's always fun to have like everyone else's perspective about it. I've made my thoughts clear. If I have to make a top three, I'd say RTS games at the very top. It's been way too long. Such a genre that you can capitalize on. And then the arcade ones, arcade racing games and sports games. Number three. What would be number three for me? Maybe platformers. I'd like to see more types of platformers, except the big three. Like maybe platformers, but I'd say RTS very top. Arcade sports / racing games, or like not even racing. Take racing out, just arcade vehicle games. Number three, platformers. That'll be my top three when it comes to that. Let's hear yours. But yeah, that's pretty much the podcast. As I said, a pretty fast one. Thank you for having listened and watched it. Thank you for Marty for joining me for this one. I do highly appreciate it.
Yes.
And yeah, hopefully you guys like this. There's going to be more podcast episodes soon in the future. And we'll get some more folks to join us for discussion on those ones. I've also got a lot of more other video projects. But until then, you guys stay safe and healthy out there. And we will all chat soon. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.